Welcome to the createYES Summit for your environmental sustainability, where sustainability is about way more than just climate change, but also things that you can do in your own life to create some shifts and changes. My name is Victoria Bard, founder of createYES, and my guest today is the body mechanics queen, Cindy Getchonis, otherwise known as a Traeger approach to Aston kinetics practitioner who supports self-expression from an embodied place. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Victoria. Thanks for that lovely introduction.
Oh, absolutely. You also, so our listeners know, you also have a traditional training in your individual BA that you got, which is the mind-body synthesis, a basis of holistic health theory and philosophy. And you have taught at Finger Lakes Massage School for a number of years.
Over 20.
Over 20. So being known as the body mechanics queen, I think there's a story in there. How did you get that name?
Well, having gone to the lovely Boulder School of Massage with you,
yes.
I was drawn to that school because it had so much movement in it, and movement just felt always like a really healing place for me, where I was most at home. And I started getting really curious about body mechanics and body use there. And even before that, during my individual major studies in undergrad, there was so much about all these somatic modalities. It was so interesting. And eventually I was teaching at a massage school, and body mechanics were kind of a challenge for people to get comfortable with. And I could show them something, but then my Aston training began, and it was like ping, 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 all these like huge realizations that were just minor adjustments that made so much more comfort. And because I was really the only person really deeply pursuing it, I got the title of the queen. Yes, because it really does open up my, well, for me, it opened up my eyes on function in a way that I hadn't really been able to see fully before.
Now, when you say you're talking about the body mechanics, is this in teaching students how to use their own body mechanics or working with clients?
Both. I mean, the title and the story happened at massage school because other teachers would be saying, Cindy, I can't quite figure out why their shoulder hurts or their ankle sore. And I could say, oh, it's, they're pushing off from this way or their angle's funny. But also I'm trained to help people with violin playing, even though I'm not a violinist, and how they might sit at their keyboard or swing their golf club or whatever. There's just, there's a really neat paradigm there that includes asymmetry and natural movement, and circular movement, spirals are normal. And it's just very supportive to whatever someone's doing. It's not, one of those slogan taglines is, it's not what you do, it's how you're doing it. So we help just people do whatever they love doing more fully and more comfortably.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. So working with violin player, their arm and their shoulder is up and it's in this repetitive position, and then it hurts.
Right. So first it'd be a whole body movement. We'd retrain them how to lift that violin from everything. You see, that was very different when I put my hand up to my fake violin versus here's my hand up. I pushed off the ground and I pushed off my seat. Yeah. So I used my whole body to lift my arm that little bit. And now my shoulder isn't stressed as much. So it's more free to hold my violin and move my fingers. So even if you were to just lift your arm right now without any push off or anything and wiggle your fingers and then put your arm down and then see if you can push off your seat and almost swing your arm up and then wiggle your fingers and then go back to the first one, lift your arm up and wiggle. Sometimes you can feel the difference. Like, yeah, it's heavier. There's a little, it's like you're underwater. There's something keeping you from flowing as much. So sometimes comparison is an incredible way to feel how things are different. And I love that because with Aston and Traeger too, it's so much about the client being able to see and feel and understand and have tools to help themselves through their daily life. So they're not constantly needing to come back to me.
Someone who is brand new listening to this, we're putting a lot of jargon out there. We've got
Yes.
patterning, we've got kinetics, we've got Traeger, we've got somatics, biomechanics. What is all this stuff for some of these men who had a massage, maybe? Hopefully everyone had a massage at some point, but let's say you've never had a massage, you're listening to this for the first time. What is all this language? So let's start with Aston patterning. Is that what you started with before Traeger?
Actually, kind of simultaneously.
Okay.
So I had read about both in my undergraduate and was very drawn because they were very holistic forms of working with body, and they kind of dovetail really nicely. But so Aston Kinetics, I read the most about, and I loved the way she talked about movement being more natural and easy and supporting people to do what they love to do. And there was something about the asymmetry. It's like, yeah, why should we be symmetrical? That's a lot to put on a body. I always feel kind of stiff and robotic when I'm trying to even out my shoulders. I was in a dance class and she kept trying to push my shoulders down evenly. And I was like, well, I used to throw discus, so my right side's like big. And I didn't realize it, but I was sleeping on my side a lot. So my shoulders were kind of stuck and tight. And with Aston, we'd never like just push your shoulders down. We'd explore. Same with Traeger. We'd play. We'd explore movement as a way to get more insight into what's going on and then empower ourselves to feel better. So anytime you move, you're an athlete, as far as I'm concerned. If you're chopping vegetables or sitting at a computer, that's a kind of repetitive body movement that you need comfort to keep doing, right? And to protect yourself from overuse injury. And all of these kinds of words we're throwing around works with that, no matter what you do in your life.
Now, I was reading about Aston. I always think of it as Aston patterning. Aston kinetics is what you're saying. Are they the same?
Yes. Aston patterning was her first term for it because it was partly one of her greatest skills is being able to see patterns in the body. And then on top of that, being able to teach other people how to see those patterns. She's got a wonderful workbook teaching us how to see patterns and make connections through the body. Sometimes, this was my experience in school, I would look at a body and I'd see so much all at once, and I'd hear my classmates saying, oh, I see this and I see that. And I was like, I used to draw a lot and paint, and I was like, I'm good at seeing things usually. Why can't I see it now? And she explained that sometimes we're just overwhelmed with everything all at once, and we can't figure out the pattern. And so she just breaks it down into a really simple approach. It's just, the lights went on, and after that, it was just so much easier. So, but then she realized that doesn't really represent the work, because it's really everything she does. It's about the movement, the how you do it, not what you're doing, but how. So kinetics seemed to embody the work better. So she switched it.
Mm-hmm. And she worked with Ida Rolf initially, correct?
Well, so initially she was just this brilliant natural teacher. I think she would have been an engineer in a different time. And she was already teaching dance at an early age before she even, I think, was done with her college degree. And she just found herself understanding how to show people how to do things. I love this story of this being told that her student of dance who could not learn the foxtrot to save his life was brilliant on the track. He was a brilliant track athlete. So she went to the track, she started running side by side with him, and then ran in front of him, and then just said, okay, now run like this, 1, 2, 1, 2. You know, she went to where he was comfortable and gradually introduced the moves of the foxtrot, and then they were foxtrotting all around the track. I love that story because that's meeting people where they are and not making them wrong because they can't figure it out, right? It's just, that's my job now as someone who coaches, like try and figure out where are people's comfort zones already with movement, and how can I help them, free something up, working with what they have rather than trying to get them to come along with me, which was kind of what I felt like in a few different modalities, where people would be forcing my shoulders down or telling me, do this now, do that now. And I'd be like, you know, kind of stuck and stiff and like, what do you mean? I don't know how to do that. And you're just telling me to do it repeatedly. That doesn't tell me how. That just tells me, I just feel like I'm doing it wrong. So that like, and I also realized in retrospect, oh yeah, I was really on hold. It's really like a little deer in the headlights. Don't do that. It also doesn't help, right? Like don't, so then what am I supposed to do? And so Judith Aston's work, I think, is brilliant in working with people and really knowing how to support them in a way that feels successful.
And that piece of meeting people where they're at is, I think, from what I'm getting a sense, is the core of your work with people.
When I was in college, I got to do a term abroad study, and I was attracted to it because I had just taken Asian medical systems, and Tibetan medicine was one of the 3 systems we covered. And I just knew I wanted to go. So I found a program, a study abroad program, and I thought it was brilliant. I loved the way they encompassed diet and environment, where you live. And I realized, like, I don't know how well this is going to work. I don't plan on living here. I'm not sure how much effectiveness I can have with people if they don't really understand it. And then I really felt like I want to do something. I want to work with people where they can really connect and they're not done scratching their heads. What do you mean, wind, bile, and phlegm? What is that? You know, I was like, I think I want to work within the community I'm in and try and connect without all that other stuff. And I know tons of people have great success working with the Western world with this. But I realized for myself, I was really drawn to being able to just connect where people are at.
Where did you go abroad?
The Tibetan Studies program began in India, in Dharamsala. Then we got to go to Nepal, and we were lucky enough to get into Tibet for a couple of weeks plus. And then, which was very stressful and intense, but beautiful. And then we finished in Kathmandu, Nepal area. And we all presented, we all had a month to do independent studies. So I went back to Dharamsala to study with an Englishman who had married a Tibetan woman and fully embraced the whole Tibetan culture and lifestyle and was studying Tibetan Buddhism. And because that goes in part with the medicine.
Yes.
Is like you have to commit to studying Tibetan Buddhism, to do art, to do music. It's all interwoven, which I thought was inspiring and beautiful.
And not part of traditional Western culture here to incorporate all of those. And
Right.
yet that is the focus of my summit here. I have Ayurvedic medicine and the music and sound and intelligence of plants and living from an embodied place and nutrition. I mean, so many different places. So many different philosophies I've brought forward because we can't approach, well, let me rephrase that. Approaching our spirituality is a multifaceted place, and approaching our environments are all of the environments, not just mind or not just body, but mind, body, spirit, home, everything. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, great. Yeah, oh, I love it. I remember having classmates studying shiatsu, which is traditional Chinese medicine, and they just understood it. They just clicked with all the jargon and the terms. And I was just like, wow, that's great. I can't quite go there, but I love it. I have to work much harder than you do to understand it. So I was like, clearly it's individual. Clearly, it's just what you're drawn to. Yeah.
You were drawn to the Boulder School of Massage Therapy, you said, because of the movement. And then the very first course we took was shiatsu. How was that for you?
Yeah. Crawling on the floor and being on my hands and knees. It took a while, but I remember it just, the tide turned and suddenly I was there. All the other things about timing, of connections of meridians to different things, that was a little tricky. I started to get it, but yeah, that was, I loved it. I loved it. Shiatsu is one of my favorite modalities. I love traditional Chinese medicine. Just love all those, like all those ways of bringing nature into the individual's status. That's the cool thing about those modalities. That's why I had to study Asian medicine for a while, because I read enough to know that they look at each person's individual constitution. That's a huge word there, constitution. And don't make any changes without really knowing that first, which I feel the same way about body work. I take time to know people, to understand what really is at the heart of what they're looking for and what they want. What are their goals?
One of our goals as humans is to evolve, to begin something, to learn it, and then we evolve into it or we evolve beyond it. Right. And you have evolved beyond that foundation of working with people into Aston Kinetics and Traeger. Let's talk about Traeger a little more. What is that?
It's wonderful. It's a fellow, just like there's Judith Aston, who made discoveries and it just kept evolving, which I didn't go back to. Judith Aston and Ida Rolf, very interesting story there. But anyway,
we'll come back.
We can come back. But Milton Traeger just innately just kept making these discoveries. Beginning as a teen, he had to lie about his age to work at the post office. His family was very poor and he had to go to work. So he lied about his age, and he was carrying mail, and they had little notices for the mail workers. And he's, sometimes they read them and check them off like they did, and sometimes they wouldn't read them. But this one said something about breathing being important. Was that in the 50s, the 40s? I'm like so impressed that the post office was aware of breath for support. So he put down his mail carrying bag and he took a deep breath, and it changed everything for him. So he and his brother would do acrobatics on the beach over the years, and he started asking questions like, what could be lighter? He was a boxer and his coach had sciatica, and he told his coach to lay down, let me massage you. And he just had a knowing in his hands, and he didn't force things. He didn't push an agenda. He explored. He eventually became a transcendental meditator, which was really, I think, the real foundational piece of presence. What happens when you're curious and open? Well, how could it be? Not just how is it, which we can get really obsessive about, like, what is it exactly? How deep is it? How wide is it? And then defining it and giving it a label. But what about, well, yeah, so it's that. And then, well, how do I want it to be? How could it be? And then suddenly there's this opening to explore. And that's why it's called the Traeger approach, because it's not a set bunch of movements, although that can help a practitioner learn to practice the approach. It's not really about the moves. It's about presence, being in that moment, asking questions, staying curious. So I could just do it right now with like, well, I feel a little something in my shoulder. It feels a little stuck. What would feel a little lighter there? What if, just that question, what if I let it drop? What if it could be softer? One of my favorite ones is like imagining an Angora bunny, really soft bunny. What if I stroke that bunny with my ear, with my cheek, and the side of my head? Oh, it's so soft. Can I imagine that softness? And just using my mind in that way of being curious and imagining a connection. My body doesn't know the difference between my imagination and what I'm sensing. So I've just given myself a new direction into the feeling of tilting my head and moving it forward and back. Right? That's a command center. Do this now, body. Or, well, what could be so soft and easy? Oh, hi, Bonnie. You know, a little carrot. Playfulness is helpful. Just not taking ourselves too seriously and trying that out. And oh, and the bunny's going to hop over to the other side, or maybe it has a twin. Just being with that motion. Oh, it's so soft. already I can feel my shoulders doing something different. Well, what is that they're doing? And this he called or calls mentastics, which is like a mental gymnastics, I guess, where that comes from.
Mhm.
So anyone can do it. You don't need a teacher. There's tons of us on YouTube to follow along with if you need that. But it's simply being soft and gentle and curious and being in the moment. And it's fun to create images like your hand is trailing in the water. If you're in a boat, you're all relaxed, feeling the top of the water. That can already start to change your hand and your shoulder. Just remembering a feeling that you enjoyed. So we have like a vast ability to recollect experiences that made us feel better. So that's a big part of it too. And then there's the hands-on work, which is rhythmic rocking, never forcing an agenda, following the lead of the body of the person.
It sounds like it's important how you ask that question of your body, not why is my shoulder stuck and staying there. Inquire, why is my shoulder feeling this? But then the what if it could be open? What about this? Could it feel that? Very open-ended questions is what it's sounding like are important to ask in this way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because
My
we're
fingers
looking for a new discovery, right? We're waiting for a new experience.
So that type of question you're asking helps lead the brain to a more open space, to allow in a
Right.
possibility of something different.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're noticing some restriction. We're noticing something unwanted. And it's so easy because I think it's part of our fight or flight protective mechanism to stay focused on problem. It's natural. Like we don't want that saber-toothed tiger to get us. That rustling in the bushes, that could be a snake. Those of us that just relaxed as we walked past that probably aren't part of the current gene pool, right? We're to survive, we had to be alert and look at problems. But oftentimes that's not where a solution is found, right? So we have to use our powerful, amazing, brilliant frontal lobes, which requires maybe calming down, centering. Okay, what's another way to be with this? Like, how would I like it to be? Rather than how I don't like it, how I don't like it, how I don't like it. So, and again, that requires me being gentle with myself about that. Yeah, I got stuck in that loop again of that darn problem shoulder. Boy, that darn shoulder, as if it doesn't even belong to me. It's me. This is me. This is all me. So, what can I do to make me feel better here around my shoulder?
Those are some good questions. Now, along with meeting people where they are, right now, they are not in your office. They are at home. How can you meet people in their homes? This is really like can you work with people from their homes and virtually with any parts of your work?
Absolutely. I feel like movement coaching can be done that way. Also, I've often been able, because I've been doing massage for quite a long time now, I can often talk to people on the phone and kind of figure out what maybe they can try next to help themselves. Certainly if I have a visual, that helps a lot, but sometimes I can talk people through some self-care, between the mentastics. And then there's also Aston Fitness with her version, an approach to moving the body for stretching and toning, because it's not always that something needs to be smushed into relaxation as much as that feels awesome. Sometimes it needs more tone or balanced tone. So finding a way to help people determine and help themselves or improve the routine they already do so it's not exacerbating a pattern. That's something I can easily do, often just through video. And then we were talking before about something else I find really helpful. Since I'm a massage therapist, people come also to relieve stress. And sometimes, like we were saying before, in order to creatively problem solve, it would help if we could get out of that sympathetic nervous system if we get a little too stuck there. I think it was Christiane Northrup that said, we often have the pedal to the metal. The gas is the sympathetic system, and sometimes that just gets like to be our primary way that we're interacting with the world. And then suddenly we have a little free time and we slam on the brake, the parasympathetics, and we think that should be enough. Like we should be able to just be there, but it doesn't really work like that. Like we need a little bit more interplay, a little more frequently than we do, instead of all gas and then I got a little time for a break. Why don't I feel better? Why do I have problems? I took Saturday off, or I watched a movie. Why is this accumulating? And it's a little bit more about maybe sometimes noticing the little things throughout the day that we can do to just lighten up on the gas a little bit. So
you use the word
yes.
accumulating. These patterns in our body accumulate over time. So when we take off the gas and put the brake on, that doesn't accumulate all at once to balance.
Right. It's really can be really tricky to try and relocate, like, or find again that what does it feel like to really relax? And that's why often people talk about a 2-week vacation. They often just start to remember relaxing and it's time to come home. And the process of getting home and transitioning into work, they wish they had just a couple more days, because it takes a little time to reconnect. Unless you have a really regular meditation practice, which a lot of us think that means just sitting. It doesn't. There's all kinds of ways to tap in to yourself and calm down. It can be just a couple minutes, multiple times during the day. You just exhale. My favorite. All right, so I feel like it's not true that I'm an expert on breathing, but I obnoxiously kind of call myself that because I am so challenged. I feel like I'm wired a little faster, and I get really excited about things, and I keep going when I should be stopping, and put too much on my plate.
I don't know anything about any of that.
You don't know anything about that? Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. So let's use some breath to slow down that. Ooh, gotta get there right now.
Then I'm shallow up here, and
yeah. Okay, so let's do it.
So my favorite way to get back, this is one thing that's really worked for me almost every time, is I will exhale. Just let it all out. Maybe I'll even squeeze in my abdomen if I really feel like I'm having a hard time doing that deep belly breath thing. I'll really squeeze in my belly, because I think my belly forgot how to let go sometimes. Like it's just kind of stuck there. Some people do paradoxical breathing, where they reverse what their belly's supposed to do on the inhale and exhale. So that can happen when you've really gotten into a loop. So squeezing in my belly to get it all out. And then I just pause. I relax my belly. And I say, okay, body, you tell me when it's time to breathe in. I'm just going to watch you. Now, it took me a little while to practice that, what that really feels like. But I just exhale. I'm going to stop talking a minute and do it. Then is just like just a second ago is when my belly went naturally, just expanded. And it expands side and to the back. I mean, our breath moves in 360, right? We are cylinders here. And when they expand down and the diaphragm comes down, it's like an umbrella doing the opposite. It's an umbrella up here when we've exhaled and there's not much in our lungs. And then when we inhale, it comes down, it pushes on our belly, gives us a lovely belly massage. That kicks on the parasympathetics, just that alone. Kicks your parasympathetics back on. And when we do a lot of breathing techniques, sometimes we lose track of what a natural breath is. So Ilse Mittendorf did a lot of writing work with breath. She's somebody that is another resource. She's from Germany. I don't think she's alive anymore, but the Feldenkrais bodywork community talked about really liking her work. So I looked into it a little. And she said, just find your natural breath, exhale and observe. When does your body pull in the air? And I once had 2 family members that were going to have a cancer surgery in the same week. That was significant, not life-threatening, but big. And I realized, I think this is what a panic attack might be feeling like, or the beginning of one, because I just was a little worried and I didn't have much downtime to kind of process it. So I laid down and I exhaled, and it took a very shockingly long time before my diaphragm said, yeah, now we could use some air, and moved. I didn't feel out of breath at all. I just laid there. I thought, wow, it's too bad I'm not doing one of those games where I could see who can wait the longest, hold their breath, because I would have won. I would have won. It was crazy how long it took. So I realized, like, yeah, there's something brilliant about the wiring of my diaphragm with the rest of my body and how much air I need. And again, that listening thing, I have the power. I have the ability. I just need the information to know that. If I exhale and I learn to listen, I take practice, my diaphragm will reset my air, my oxygen intake where I need it to be.
So it could be, once you develop this and practice this and learn your own physical body and when it wants to breathe naturally, could one breath be enough to shift
Yes.
the movement, the activity, the go, 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 the I'm late, the whatever mindset is going, it's one breath, and then exhale and wait, which could be a while too. So I won't wait too long.
Chronic pain, right, keeps people, and like, it changes our thinking. It might keep us from sleeping. And if we're not sleeping well, again, that also adds to fight or flight being able to, like, take over a little bit more than we want it to, or than is healthy and supportive to, well, your mission of creating yes.
Create yes, your essential self, indeed.
Yes.
Through many different modalities, and being in touch with that mind-body connection, mind-body-spirit connection, but here, mind-body connection, that is one avenue to explore. And you just mentioned something about pain. And I've read in your work that the pain is a function of the mind, and it's located in the mind. And you work with educating people about that in a meet them where they're at gentle way. Can you talk about that a little bit more, and how is it that pain is in the mind and not in my shoulder that is doing whatever my shoulder is doing?
Well, so right. So what I've come to read and watch a lot of videos and education on this. So I'm not a full expert, and even understanding it in my own body is still like, wow, my brain is deciding to make that hurt, to tell me to pay attention to something. It's not wrong. I'm not broken or a wimp. There's a reason for it. Pain has always been a decision my brain makes, anyone's brains makes, to keep us alive. Sometimes it's at that level. Sometimes if we've had trauma after trauma after trauma, our bodies, if we don't have a lot of rest between them, and I'm talking a couple years of no trauma, if that just keeps building, our reflexive activity of the brain to make pain will be quicker and more intense. So be kind. I just really want people to be kind when they think about this. You're not making it up. This is how pain has always functioned. It's not, in a sense, they say, it's all in your head, meaning you're making it up, or there's something wrong with you. No, not at all. Not at all. So they notice, like, yeah, why didn't we figure this out with all the phantom limb pain of, like, veterans who have lost a limb? Like, why? And people that have been bitten by sharks and thought they had seaweed on their foot, they had no pain. Once they realized that that's not seaweed, I need to get away from a shark, they still didn't have any pain. And it wasn't. We always thought it was because of endorphins of fear. Not true. It's not what it is. The brain prioritized, we have got to save this life of ours. So it is not effective to have pain right now. We need to get away. And then later in the hospital, the pain meds were really great, right? Because our body's finally safe. We finally know that we're in a safe environment, and then we can fully register what happened. So long-term pain patterns, I've seen someone lecture to the arthritis community, and it was in Australia, this lovely lecture. And I mean, talk about a group of people that know pain, right? And it's all about education so that we can have more hope. It's not gonna like suddenly go away. There's a process in the body happening, but we can greatly diminish pain with that education, with understanding the mechanism. We may not make it go away, but we'll have more success probably than a long-term pain medication only approach. So I was going to talk about tapping. That can help calm the system. That works with points on the meridian system that have a lot to do with soothing that fight or flight mechanism. And just tapping them without even talking can help bring down that fight or flight that's part of perpetuating, keeping the pain signal higher and higher and higher.
A lot of people have headaches. Is that something that you can use tapping with?
Absolutely. So there's lots of kinds of headaches too. It can be related to hormones and that fluctuation. It can be because we looked down at our smartphone too long and these muscles got really tight. We slept funny and our neck's kind of stuck and tight. It could be just a reflexive trigger every time that stressful situation comes up. So talking to our brains, Dr. John Sarno, he's passed on, but he has many books. He figured this out long before the research happened that supported his findings. There's lots of helpful stuff there. But tapping in terms of like feeling pain that then increases our sympathetic response. If we calm down the sympathetic response, we can help bring the pain to a more manageable level, maybe get rid of it. Maybe calm the muscles that might be causing the tension pattern.
So it sounds like the particular sequence of tapping that one might do would be different depending on what type of headache. But let's take one, for example, that so many people have, of the looking down with the phone in this position. How can we help? What is the sequence for that particular type of headache?
Great. So one thing I would talk about first is to let you know it's also called the Emotional Freedom Technique, EFT, but you can also just search in YouTube tapping, and they will probably give you that approach and a million people that show you how to do it. And there's also an organization called The Tapping Solution. They're through the Hay House. They've made an app to make it really easy where you just follow along with someone. So what I might do, let's say I have a stress, tension, headache like that. Maybe I think it's just from my phone. But I'd start here. And you can tap along with me if you want, and you can make up your own words at any time that fit better for you and say them in your own head or out loud. It usually starts, even though I'm having this headache that's like just wrapping around my head. My neck feels so stuck. I can't believe how much of a headache I can have. And it just seemed to come on. All of a sudden, you see, just go on, describe.
So
Even your emotion about it. Yep, I'm so pissed off. So annoying. Anyway, even though this headache's really bugging me, I still love, honor, and respect myself, and I take full responsibility for my healing process. Not everyone says that last bit, but I think that's nice to remind ourselves we do have some power. We can learn more things. We can help ourselves more. I think that gives us hope. That's not to blame, to give hope.
So even though this condition is happening, I still
love, honor,
love, honor,
respect myself,
and take full responsibility for my own healing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I might riff off of that. Yeah, I can't believe how long I was on my phone today. That was so stressful. That whole thing, I shouldn't have got hooked into that social media thing. I always get hooked into that. Yep.
Okay.
Gosh, it's just like So
Simple.
much time. I don't know where the time goes. It just suddenly I'm sucked into my phone, and I've had poor posture, and I get so frustrated with myself. Boy, I can get so frustrated with technology, and yet I really find it so useful, and it's such a way to connect to friends. But here I am looking down, and looking down just makes me so tense. I can't believe I let myself get on that, whatever. We can just keep going. This little point below here. And I'll say it doesn't matter to be exact on the point. It's a meridian. There's a special point on the meridian that's more intense, but if you just hit the general area, that's fine. It's plenty. And I'm going lightly. And then there's one under the arm, kind of, or maybe around where a woman's bra is, or just under the armpit, but along that line of side of the body. That's the last one. You might go back here, or you might just start at the beginning. If you're worried about coronavirus and touching your face, it's okay to skip that. If you don't have like hand sanitizer or soap around, skip the face, just go from the top of the head to down here to here and back to here. And just those is fine. I've given you the maximum I know. There's probably even more points you could be tapping. But those are the easy ones on the upper body. And I just find as I start talking to myself about myself, I get new insights. Maybe I'm really holding tension because I was really mad at that. Why did I do that? Or why did so-and-so say that? And then I start connecting to myself in a really nice way. And I know that usually by the time I'm calming down, I'm starting to say things like, but it's okay. I'm learning. I learned something today. I'm figuring it out. I'll do better next time. You can do either side of the body. You don't have to stay. I could do two hands if I wanted to. I could do double. It's all right. I'm sorting this out. I mean, we're all on a journey. We're all figuring it out. And I know sometimes my emotions get the best of me. So that's maybe, oops.
Everything
Whoa!
got perfect. Woo!
Woo! Sometimes I hit the cord and knock my camera, wackadoodles. Yeah, so sometimes my emotions get the best of me. And sometimes maybe that's happening for other people that I found kind of difficult to follow along with. I don't understand why they said it, but they're just on their journey too. And I want peace. I want to bring peace. I want to feel peace. So I got to start with me. Good, I'm doing this. This is really good for me. I'm really glad I'm doing this. Self-love.
Even though
And so
this
you just be
self-love, even though
yeah.
this is happening and
Yeah.
these people, they're on their journey, but I've got this and I'm fine.
My
And
job is here first and foremost. Let it start with me. And that's empowering. Very empowering, right?
Sounds like you can put almost anything in to your language, to the situation, so long as you start with even though and bring it around, identify all the different details of what is, and then don't end there, right? You have to keep going.
Yeah, and so that's why it's helpful to follow along with someone who's more experienced with it. Some people like it when I do it with them because I've practiced it a lot. I can take them through and I have them add something in if you want, or take over at any time. But we find a way to get enough of a taste of what the issue is that we can start turning it around towards self-knowledge, self-responsibility, and calm and peace. And it often can later on percolate, and I can get other ideas of another aspect of the situation that I hadn't thought about, that maybe I could calm that down too.
So always ending with something that is in the self-love category. I am doing this. I am getting better.
Hopefully you can get there. Yeah. Yeah.
It's at least in your language to help get there.
The main thing that tapping is doing is you're talking about a stressful situation while calming down your whole nervous system, so that the stressful scenario is a story like the passing weather rather than something that takes control. So it doesn't mean you forget the difficulty. It doesn't mean your memory is erased. It means your relationship to the experience is now calm. Your emotions aren't driving the bus so much, right? There's an opportunity for wholeness and healing, and even though something terrible happened. So if there's something like really intense off the charts, you're going to do this in layers. But if you can just take it down a notch, if you tell yourself right now between 1 and 10, I feel like an 8, and you're done and you recheck and say, I'm at a 5. That's great. That's progress, right? But if you've gone up to 10, maybe get some help.
10
that's
is
the wrong
reactive.
direction. Too high, right? 10's the worst.
Okay.
And, if you can get down to 1, fantastic, but it's all managing expectations, right? So if something's been really hard, you've been at it a long time. I think of that as like, some people talk about it like an old pattern or a long standing or a heavy duty situation. It's like maybe a cruise ship going full steam, right? There's nothing wrong with a cruise ship. It's just a cruise ship, but it's fast right now and it's big and it needs to suddenly go left. No, it's not going to happen. It's not suddenly going to go. You got to slow it down first.
Mm-hmm.
So be nice to yourself. You just got to slow down that pattern. Just slow it down, make it less, make it a little less, make it a little less. And then maybe you can look at something very different. And now the sun's shining, or, it can be better. So sometimes it's just a matter of less intense. Less intense is a better goal than gone.
Gone, your brain will probably reject as even
Exactly. Yeah, I think
better.
there's some scientific research on that. Like, right, we can't just suddenly put on a happy face on a problem. We need to like understand it some, but maybe not live in it. That's why it's difficult for me as a practitioner. I like to help people, but I need to understand what they need help with. And I don't really want them to have to relive their trauma at the same time. So it's always tricky when we go see a practitioner to not re-traumatize, like, oh yeah, that fall was so intense and scary. So that's where tapping can come in and make it a little less intense for someone. And massage or Traeger or Aston.
You have said that you were teaching for about 20 years, and it's been since 92, 93 that we were in school together. So that's a long time to be working in this practice, in this field. Mm-hmm. What keeps you going?
People. I love people. I love learning. I mean, my dad was like this too. We just love more school. And I learned so much from every client that walks in the door. And I'm just so grateful for the internet that I can go and look up someone's discoveries and get more information on anything I'm interested at all. I mean, what an amazing time we're living in. And this createYES symposium is another example of, wow, I can't wait to watch everyone's presentation and take it all in. So every time I walk into my office, I'm either learning something about myself, like how I can do me better, or learning something from a client and and that learning I can bring to the next client. So this is not a boring job. I remember hearing people say, boy, massage gets repetitive and boring. I'm like, really? Really? Not for me.
In the way you work with people, especially with Aston Kinetics and Traeger approach, you're meeting people where they are. People are not boring. People are unique. Even the same person doesn't show up 2 different weeks. They're a new person. So that's not boring.
Exactly. Right. It's just a little challenge. And I would say to students that we're starting to get into a routine that was a little bit of a rut because they felt safe there. It's like, yeah, you kind of have to step out of your comfort a little bit and, be humble, be curious. Come back to humble, be curious. Sorry, that was a miss. I was trying something new, or I'm going to try something a little different. What do you think? As long as we don't have to be the keepers of perfect knowledge, which doesn't exist anywhere, then we're free to explore, right? The way we did when we were little kids, before we got scared about making a mistake, we just tried stuff. And if we have that open-hearted curiosity, like we did when we were little, that sort of gives other people permission to explore and be open to.
And to
Or
be
so it seems. And to be vulnerable and make new discoveries.
Yeah. Hold on. Ooh. What's going on? I am recording. I'm in my interview.
It's been an hour.
Okay.
Oh, no.
No,
Well,
almost.
I'll just cut this part out.
Oh, sure. That's fine.
Or,
You've got a few things to cut out.
we were just talking about how we evolve through tapping, through growing past our past experiences and being open to what's possible. And one thing we were talking about before was Aston patterning and how Judith Aston was working with Ida Rolf. Can you talk about that some more and how she evolved that whole process?
I really think that's such a great example of how we're in this together. Like we're all helping each other expand and grow. Judith Aston had some injuries, and even though she was a brilliant teacher already, she was helping actors and actresses embody their character. She really had this sense of being able to coach people in their movement. And she had had a couple car accidents, and she was finding it difficult to heal. And she heard about Ida Rolf's, I'm not sure which is the proper word, but her work, and just waited outside the office to see if there'd be a cancellation, because Ida Rolf was in her neck of the woods and or nearby. So finally they met. Ida helped her. It was amazing. It was Judith's first time, I think, with really amazing change, with someone touching and doing that work. And Judith wanted to learn the work, and Ida wanted Judith to help coach people how to keep their Rolf line, because that was the big challenge. Now that you feel more aligned, how do you keep it in the rest of your life? So there was kind of a teamwork that happened there from the very beginning. Judith noticed the students had difficulty following along with what an instructor could see, and that like made the wheels turn a lot. Like, oh, so why is that? Oh, because we all see things uniquely, because we're all different. So she learned how to break down the process of seeing so that a person could pick the view they wanted to start with that spoke to them the most. And then they had tools to know how to work with, well, that neck shoulder thing, that's getting my attention. What's between the neck shoulder thing? The head, well, the neck and the shoulder and then the head. No, not as interesting as the low back. Just move, helped people find their own path into that analysis. And it just goes on and on and on, these stories. And eventually Judith was working on Ida, and people were feeling Judith's work was a little different. And so the Rolf community felt like, maybe you should move on because you're doing something a little different from what we learned initially. Even though Ida Rolf gave it her full stamp of approval, it was a slightly different approach. Judith was into spirals and following spirals, and not just leaning in, but lifting and finding where does the tissue start to release? Oh, that way. And her way was to go with where the tissue allows you rather than pushing against. Which
Rolfing is certainly very specifically, this is what you do, and this is where you push, and this is how you push. And if it hurts, that's because you need it. That's my understanding of
yes,
the original.
yeah. And they've changed a lot. I've met a lot of Rolfers or people that have been educated more recently, and it's very exciting that they're embracing pain doesn't have to be part of it. And I'm sure that's, a lot of people have that in their own personal paradigm, that pain's essential. So that won't go away. But a lot of Rolfers now realize this. Robert Schleip is a PhD Rolfing instructor. He was a therapist first, talk therapist first. He's researching fascia. He's the one saying, here it is. We think it's all like this stuck fascia thing, but it's really about the nerves in the fascia. It's like, it's more neurological. It's not something stuck we got to pry apart after all.
So even Rolfing,
Rolfers is evolving, right? And so Judith Aston had to go, and she's like, And so she really she was then freed up, which is like, it worked out.
Beautiful.
You know, she was really freed up to explore her movement patterns and everything. So that's the initial connection there. It was sort of a mutual meeting of minds. They wanted each other's stuff, and they both, I think, evolved from it. I think Ida Rolf got very subtle in her later years. She really more energetically was melting people's, you know, muscles down their back. She would get out of her wheelchair and do a demo. She wasn't muscling it. It was not muscle. So the subtlety and nuance was always evolving through any teacher of any discipline. It's always evolving. As long as we don't try and pin it down for too long and too hard, it should, I think, keep evolving. Like us.
Yes, like us. At this time, with people home, not engaged in their typical movement activities, maybe there's a lot more sitting. Maybe there's physically less space to move around in, even if they're not sitting. What is a tip that you can give to someone who is at home who might need to expand their low back from sitting? Or how do their knees feel? Or how do their shoulders feel from the computer work? Is there something that is just a quick and easy tip for people?
Well, like we talked about earlier, breath is a great place to start. Just notice what your breath's been doing. How are you sitting? Can you, in the position you're in a lot, can you even breathe? Maybe you should just lay down, bend your knees, get comfy, and focus in on your breathing. I know I've had a lot of people talk about how stressed they are about the virus, and now there's so many other things going on, and they get glued in a tense way to some kind of media, TV, computer, handheld, something, and their body's going more and more rigid and on hold. My favorite, of course, as you know from my bias of loving to move, is a dance party. I mean, maybe you're a little down, maybe you want to start with something a little mellow. Just close your eyes and sway a little bit. Don't do anything jarring or painful if you're uncomfortable. And just try and maybe you just want to hang over. Maybe you'll find out, you know what? I need to cry a little bit. And then the crying's out of the way. And then maybe we'll try another kind of music. Maybe you're ready to try something a little happier. Sometimes I can just jump right into my favorite dance tune. It just gets me going, and I just start moving. Anything that feels stiff, I start doing something. Dr. Barry Gordon, is it? Dr. Gordon, he has a Mind-Body Institute. They go to places in the world and teach people how to manage stress after a trauma, whether it's an earthquake, tsunami, or war. And they use culturally appropriate tools. They teach the locals how to do it, and the locals keep it going. It's really beautiful empowerment. And he's often had a special aired on PBS. And he said, you know, the best anti-aging is dance, not bridge or crossword puzzles, but dancing and learning new dances. So there's that. Moving your body, it's a very mind-body thing, getting your emotions involved. And then challenge yourself to learn a new step if you really want, once you're feeling well and you want to really engage your health, using both hemispheres of your brain, using both sides. Sometimes when we're in pain, we stop moving across our midline. And when we dance, we often start moving across our midline. That's great for our brains. So random dance and then learning specific dances. Anything is on YouTube, right? You can take dance classes online, easy. Just challenging yourself a little at a time. Sure, it might be difficult. Pause it, rewind. Just do a little bit at a time. Make it fun, make it easy. Something you like, something that you're drawn to. And I think that's a great way to start getting fit again, feeling more empowered in your body, getting your body breathing more naturally.
So we've talked about tapping, emotional freedom technique, EFT. We've talked about breathing, where we take a breath or we exhale rather we exhale our breath and wait and pause until we feel that inner knowing of it's time to inhale now and find your own natural rhythm.
Mhm.
We've talked about dance as a way to get some movement going and shift into the shift out of what's possible instead of sitting stuck in one place. I want to ask about one more thing.
Mhm.
You have mentioned in our conversations that you've been drawn to the work of Abraham Hicks. How
Mhm.
does that fit into the mind-body connection for you?
When I first heard about their teachings, it took a while for me to get into the loop, but I was like, this is Traeger. This is Aston. We're moving on the yes. We're looking for the yes. We're looking for what's possible. We're looking for what's available. We're looking for the yes. The way Judith Aston teaches is what can you do, not what you can't do or should stop doing. Traeger is looking for what could be better. So I just felt like it was a perfect way to reconnect to, or how Abraham Hicks words things fit so beautifully with all of these disciplines that I'm already drawn to. And it helped me remember to do it every day. It helped me remember, like, oh, when my spouse is stressed, I don't want to focus on that. And as soon as I stopped focusing on their stress and focused on, well, how am I doing? How could it be? Right? That combination of Traeger thinking, maybe, or an Aston move that helps me feel my spine loosen and brings me into the present moment. I'm focused back on me and what I can do to control myself. And all of a sudden, my husband's stress would just melt away so much faster. So it turns out he could notice me, noticing him be stressed. And then I took away that burden for him. Like, oh, I don't want to negatively impact her too, but I can't help it. I feel this way. So it just was logical. To me, Abraham Hicks is just pure logic in terms of self-care. It plays out in the nervous system perfectly. So I think it's marvelous that we have that available too.
Well, that's just wonderful. It ties everything all together. And it sounds like you're evolving into yet another phase. And now that people are at home and you're going to meet them where they're at, how could people reach you?
Sure, they can call me on my phone. We can do an email exchange. I have a website. I have a second one coming up soon that's a little more Traeger focused and a little more Aston focused. So any number of ways. Do you want me to list that right now, what my number
Sure.
is? Or sure.
If you
I'm
put it up there.
in the East Coast. I'm in Ithaca, New York. My number is 607-279-5978. And my email is my first initial and my last name. So CGETCHONIS@yahoo.com. And you can just put my name, Cindy Getchonis, into a search engine and it should, I hope, come up with my website. I have one through the ABMP and another one will soon be there through Traeger.
I found a different website for you, and I don't remember which one. So
I'm also listed on the Aston Kinetics website. I'm listed on the Traeger website as a practitioner. There's Facebook as well. You can message me through Facebook.
there are many ways to reach you.
Yes.
Well, wonderful, because as you move into a new phase, as we're all moving into a new phase right now, then you can continue to work with people and meet them where they're at and shift their relationship with the physical body part of themselves, not their shoulder, other, but the shoulder part of their beingness.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a wonderful self-care tip to connect with Cindy and have her lead you and guide you through your breathing techniques or your tapping or your movement for shifting that physical body environment and be more sustainable in your own individual life. Well,
Yay.
it has been a pleasure to talk with you today, Cindy.
Thank you, Victoria. I've had a great time.
Yeah.
It's been really fun.
And I will make sure that everyone has your phone number, Facebook, website contacts included as well. And May we all breathe into our perfect movements.
That are
Thank-
just right for us in every moment.
Perfectly perfect on time. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Victoria. Bye-bye.
Bye.